What's happening, Crispy Akiyama? When I think of a great type beat, I think of something that's loud and also easy to listen to, meaning like little to no harshness present. I think of something that gets to the point pretty quick is something else that makes a great type beat stick out. But the most important thing is the artist's ability to envision themselves rapping or singing over the song. Like a great type beat allows artists to imagine themselves on the beat, where they hear it and instantly connect. And if you're a producer, you know what I'm talking about. Like if you've been in a room with an artist and you're cycling through beats, or you're an engineer and you're looking up type beats with an artist in a session, like they like almost like stop what they're doing. They stop rolling up, or they like put their phone down and they'll kind of like look up or just kind of like vibe. You can see something change in the chemistry with what they're doing. And I think that's the most important thing. So, what I've realized being a producer who's pitched my beats to artists, being an engineer who is helping artists find beats on YouTube, the things that I realize get in the way of artists picking beats is, for one, if the beat is too busy, meaning that it's overproduced, there's too many sounds. And another one is, it's horribly distorted, which that's a whole other video. Really what I want to get at is making sure there's space for an artist to imagine themselves on the beat. Now, overproducing, that's one thing. Let's assume that the beat's not overproduced. You have a good amount of sounds, you have some call and response going on. And if you're unfamiliar with what these terms mean, then drop a comment. We can make a video on that. But I'm talking about leaving space for the artist from a more frequency and imaging standpoint. So this is production, but we're going into where mixing and production kind of like take place, or really just expert level production is kind of what I'm getting at. Now, what do I mean by leaving space frequency wise and imaging wise? One of the things I hear in a lot of beats from people who are starting out is, or maybe not even just starting out, but don't really have the best idea of how things should be placed as a producer, and they might usually leave that up for an engineer, is you guys have to keep in mind the 808 or bass, the kick, snare slash clap, and the vocals. These are the loudest things that are in your mix. And all of these things are in the middle. Your 808, your kick, your snare, and your vocals. These are literally the four loudest things that are in your mix, or that are in your song. And these are all things that are in the middle. The challenge that I hear is people have lead synths, they have keyboards, they have all these other instruments, and they're all in the middle with everything else that's in the middle. And so one thing people do is they pan things, they'll pan things left and right. That's cool. But even then, it's like it's panned, it's positioned out the middle, but it doesn't really sound alive. It's just to the left a little bit, to the right a little bit. So what I want to talk about is how I use effects to not only position sounds in the mix to get away from the middle, but also to give them more life. Because I feel like typically when people think of effects, they imagine effects from a standpoint of altering the integrity of a sound. Where I am relying on effects to enhance the imaging of a sound and provide some life and movement and some motion with the sound. So let me go through and show you guys exactly what I mean by that. So this is a beat that I had cooked up, and I'll just play this portion right here so you guys can kind of hear what the beat sounds like, and then I'll break down the effects that I use for the music parts. And if you stay to the end, I'll show you how you can use effects on your drums as well. I'll just show you guys that one at the end. So let's make sure that I'm not slipping for one. All right, here we go. Cool. So guys, this is a again, this is a beat that I cooked up, Cherry Blossom. I don't even have everything on the master bus just because, guys, I'm still running on an Intel i9. I'm going to get a new laptop first quarter of 2025. So it sounds even better than what you guys can hear right now, but the whole effects portion, you guys are able to hear clearly. So let's focus on this piano. Okay, so I mean, first things first is, when it comes to creating separation, there's level, which is like your faders. You have your frequencies, which is really, I think of like your filters. So assuming that you're cutting out the low end, that's not needed for your instruments, because that's probably where I would start faders, filters, and then effects. Those are like the F's, the 3 F's. You guys should write that down. Faders for level, filters for frequencies, and then effects for movement and imaging. Okay, so I went through and I did my faders already. I went through and did my filter. I'm just using this plugin for that, my filters. And then now let's go into effects. And if you guys are kind of curious about like the faders and the filter part, um, I can make a video on that. I know I'm kind of doing this like in Star Wars fashion. I'm doing 4, 5, and 6 first before the first 3, but yeah. So now I put a chorus. Now, if you don't have this chorus, you'll be totally fine. I like using choruses, specifically this one. If you use your stock chorus, you'll be fine as well though. So I like this because this is another issue that I typically hear is people hear, okay, you need to spread things out and move things out the middle. So people will use a stereo imager on every single sound. And a lot of times they might even use the same settings for every single sound. All you do is take everything that's bunched up in the middle and just bunch it up in the sides. So my idea, and there's nothing wrong with using an imager, okay? The thing is that, because I mean, sometimes all you need is an imager just to move things out the way. What I like doing is having different effects on different sounds, because each thing is moving it out the way to the side, giving it movement. But a chorus, a phaser, a tremolo, they all have different movements. Tape wow, tape flutter, that has different movements. And so, yes, it might push everything out the side, but that movement that's coming from a flanger versus a tremolo versus like a tape wow, it has a different set of back and forth, left and right movement. So, with all those things going around, it just creates a different motion that you wouldn't get from just imaging things wider left and right, if that makes sense. So let's go through and play this before and after so you guys can hear not just, it's funny, it's called the Dimension D, but literally like to listen to the dimension that it adds. It's not just spreading it out, but like listen to the back and forth. Like where is it at before and after? Not just left and right, but front to back too. Okay. Before. Let's listen just to this. Now in context. Okay. So I hear that it's being pushed back a little bit in the stereo field, but it's a little bit louder. Okay. But with it being pushed back in the stereo field a little bit more, it sounds even clearer. And it's not just because it's louder, but it sounds more clear because it's not competing with anything. Now it's in its own space. Or it's more in its own space. All right. So that's the first thing. Chorus. All right. Next thing is lead, which is this sound right here. Okay, so let me play before and after. This is a very interesting one. This is the plugin I'm using here. And if you guys want a video of the individual plugins, like all the plugins I use, these are the ones I'm showing you is just for this beat. If you guys want to see that, let me know. So I love that. Again, it's movement, it's creating front to back depth. Now, obviously, this is stereoizing it in a very unique way. And that's why I love this plugin so much and something I continuously come back to. But again, I'm not looking, even with it stereoizing it to the capacity that it does, I'm not really altering the integrity of the sound. I'm enhancing it in a way, so that's this plugin right here, Real ADT Choir. Let's go through and listen to the choir, which is this sound. And we are using what on the choir? Mondo Mod on the choir. So this is doing some panning left and right, but with the AM and FM depth, again, it's giving that front to back movement. So that's what you guys are going to notice. All these plugins I'm using, it's not just spreading things out left and right. It's also adding some front to back movement, because all these small things added up, it makes the beat full of vitality. And it's much easier for an artist to approach a beat that already has life in it and to just add life to something that's already living and breathing, as opposed to feeling they have to breathe life into something that's dead. In other words, a stale song, a stale arrangement, a stale beat. So it's nice to have this type of movement in your instrumentation. All right, so before. So again, like I said, this is doing some left and right panning along with some front and back movement, which just really gives it like a nice swirling effect. It gives it a swirling effect. That's the best way I can describe that. Mondo Mod is really dope. Guitar. Okay, so the guitar is very interesting. And you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to take off the effects that I'm using for the guitar. Okay. So what's interesting about this is if you're listening as you should be with headphones or on speakers, this doesn't sound like it's going left or it's going right or it's going super wide. It sounds like it's still up the middle, but it's just like pushed back. That's because that's what's happening. All right. So one thing that now, if you guys have watched anything from Jason Joshua, especially the most recent Help Me Devon, which was a really great episode with Jason Joshua, you probably saw this, the true verb. How he uses it is a like a front to back panner. True verb is goated. I still use the plugin. One that I saw absolutely just, I don't want to say it shits on true verb, but there's just way more options. With this, you can literally go through and adjust the positioning of it. You can position like it's wild. Okay, this is called Dear VR Pro. I do not see enough videos made on this. Maybe people are trying to keep it a secret. I am going to make a video on this and show you guys how I use it. But basically, in essence, what I'm going through and doing is, remember I was saying there's three ways to create separation. You know, the fader, frequency, and then effects. When it comes to this style of effect, it's just like that front to back panner that Jason Joshua talked about with the true verb. I'm doing the same thing, but with a stereo widener with the SPL Big plugin, and then I'm using this to push it further back. So again, listen to how close it sounds before and how it just is pushed back after. Right? So now the guitar and that snare aren't competing, and it's like you can just hear the snare clearer when the guitar is playing because they're not fighting for the same space. Yeah, they're both in the middle, but one is pushed back and one is up front. So it's like you're creating that gap between the guitar, the keyboard, and the snare. And then when the artist gets into the song, they're going to be able to fit somewhere snug in there. Last one is going to be lead 2, which is going to be, you guys haven't heard this sound yet. And this one, I believe I used Real ADT again and delay. So this is another great point. I'll use the same effects on different sounds. Okay, it's not that I don't do that, but this Real ADT and the other Real ADT are not playing at the same time. That's really what I was getting at. I will use the same effects for different sounds, but those different sounds won't be playing at the same time. Okay, and then plus I did like a little Valhalla delay. I really like what I did with this delay. I did a ping pong quarter note, I'd have some ducking going on. This is my favorite delay, the Valhalla delay. It's just so easy. There's other great ones, but this is just so easy to use, and then just so many different modes. So before and after, this was a big transformation, honestly. Again, guys, it doesn't sound bad without the effects. Okay, that's the thing. The biggest cheat code, to making good beats is good sound selection and great arrangement. That's really the key. Like, that's the secret cheat code. Like, great sounds and knowing where to place those great sounds. But guys, that's the effects. That's how I use them. Again, like I said, I go for more of a subtle use. You know, everything that I'm doing here is not just to create space so the loudest things can reside in the middle. It's it's enhancing the potential and allowing the instruments to flourish through, you know, fluctuating, you know, having front to back movement and depth and having effects. Having effects just makes things fun. And like I said, as you saw through here, you don't have to use effects to alter the integrity of the sound. You can just enhance what's already there. Now, if you've watched this far, I'm going to show you something cool that you guys can actually do for your drums. I typically will do this on my hi-hats. Not all the time, just this beat kind of called for it, so I liked it. Is I'll go through and put that Mondo mod on. Now, what you'll notice is the Mondo mod is nowhere near as wide as I had it for the other sound, which was at like 180, I think, or something like that. This one only had like at 22, 23. And let's go ahead and just solo this so you can hear it before and after. Cool, we already got some movement going on with changing velocity, but now let's bring it in. So in and out. Okay, it's something small, but like I said, this is a plugin that's great for giving you like a real swirl like effect. Another great plugin is the Brauer Motion. I like using this. It's a little simpler, quick to it, but guys, this is it. Again, when I think of a great type beat, I think of more importantly than anything else is the artist's ability to imagine themselves on the instrumentation. In other words, leaving room, creating space for them, like leaving room for them, not overproducing, but then also creating space, you know, making sure that your sounds are not congested and constipated, like your beat is not constipated. So yeah, let me know what plugins you guys are using effects wise to create space. And if there is anything that you would love for me to clarify in the comments or in another video, drop a comment below. But y'all be good to yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Watch out.